Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ron Betchler. Welcome to the next in our series of Meet the CEO. I'm delighted to have Kobi Hanoch, CEO of Weebit Nano, with us again this afternoon for another conversation that I can have with him to update investors on latest developments within Weebit, what Kobi and the team are doing, and answer any questions that you might have. This obviously follows the recent quarterly activities report that the company announced. And there was a fair bit of information in there about developments. But maybe we can, one last thing, housekeeping. If you have questions, please type them in the Q&A. Once Kobi's provided his initial overview, we'll then throw to Q&A and I'll moderate them. And, we've got until about 1:45 to run this Meet the CEO. So Kobi, thanks for your time this morning in Israel. Appreciate you getting up a little bit early. If you can just maybe give a bit of an overview for investors on latest developments over the quarter, the December quarter, and then importantly, how you're seeing things going forward, and then we can open it up to questions.
Okay. So I guess Weebit is really in a crazy time now. We're literally swamped with work. It's kind of crazy. We're working, I already said in the past, we're working now with the majority of the top, the tier 1 fabs. And by the way, to help people clarify, since we'll start using terminology, there are two main types of fabs. There's foundries, which are fabs that give services to other companies, to what's called the fabless companies. And they are open to the public more or less. And then there's the IDMs, which are basically fabs that belong to a specific company that manufactures its specific products there. So the big IDMs, like Intel and Samsung and so on, those are companies that have their own fabs and manufacture in their fab. And, there's a long list there of the IDMs, of course. So we're working with both. I guess the key point to make here is we're working with many of the top foundries. We're working with many of the top IDMs. There's really a lot of interest now in ReRAM. It is here. It's finally not that future technology like everyone used to tell me, just a year and a half ago. Now it's really, you can sense there's very big interest. And, each one of these is a huge project. When you have several of these going in parallel, it's really a huge task that's going on right now. And each one of them, these are big companies. These are companies that, they invested obviously billions in setting up the fabs and so on. So they are very cautious in touching whatever goes on in the fab. They have a lot of requirements, due diligence. They want to check and verify that everything is okay with our ReRAM, that it fits, that it's that it won't cause them any problems, any contaminations, any whatever, and that the parameters of our ReRAM are like we say and like they want them to be, etc. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of work going on right now. We are trying to see how we organize this. We can't obviously work with all of these fabs at the same time. We'll be prioritizing according to who moves faster and where it's going to be easier and faster for us to close the initial agreements. So there's really a lot of work going on with these fabs on both the foundry and the IDM side. And beyond that, even though the natural course of things is that you first close with a foundry or with a foundry basically here, or even with an IDM, and then you go to the product company or product teams. and start working with them. You can first qualify in a foundry or in a fab, and then you work with the product team. We're really working on parallelizing this and getting the product teams to start working with us earlier, even though the technology isn't qualified yet in the specific fab that they want. We're working with them, with these potential companies, the product companies, and trying to see how they can start ramping up in parallel, because it does take them, time to actually do their design, and by the time they're ready for mass production, we will be qualified already. So that's kind of the logic here. Again, just so much work going on, very, very exciting right now. And I'm looking forward to a great 2023.
Thanks, Kobi. And just reminding everybody, if you have a question you'd like asked, please type it in the Q&A box. And please also put the questions in not as anonymous. We obviously won't be asking questions by anonymous. Maybe just a couple of questions to start, and the list is starting to build up. There was reference to a number of recent hires in various disclosures that companies put out. Can you give us a sense of who's been brought on and how they help the company grow in the markets that you're looking to develop?
Yeah, I think recently we brought on board 2 people that are also very, very helpful for us. Ed has been brought on as Director of North America Sales. He has a lot of experience in selling non-volatile memory technology. Actually, he was many years at Adesto. For people who remember, when I was talking about the competitors of Weebit, Adesto was actually a leading competitor before they were acquired by Dialog and then acquired by Renesas and so on. So we know him from the past. Ishai, who also came from Adesto, knows him, and he joined us in December, and he's been doing an amazing job in reaching out to the US customers, and I'm very, very happy with his work. Obviously, right now, there's a focus on getting customers to SkyWater, but it's not just SkyWater. We're already talking to other customers about other technologies in fabs that we're working with in parallel. And then there's Gidi Intrater. He's really well known in the industry as a strategist, as an architect. He was working at MIPS for many years. MIPS was one of the bigger processor companies. He was also at Adesto. He actually was leading the marketing and I think the business development activities at Adesto. So I know Gidi for many, many years. He's a very good friend. And now he's helping me with the strategy, with analyzing different options. So he's working as a consultant that's helping me part-time, but his contribution is very important. Oh, you're muted, Ron.
Sorry, after 3 years, you think you get this right. We've got a bunch of questions on both the market environment and the various fab conversations. But maybe I can start with the market environment, because several shareholders, investors have asked about e-memory. So whether you have any insight you can share regarding a Taiwanese company called e-memory that appears to have a ReRAM IP available in 40 and 22 nanometers, and how it compares to what Weebit is offering.
So, by the way, e-memory is, many people are asking me about, valuation and what they should expect with Weebit and so on. E-memory is maybe a good example of a company that focuses on licensing memory IP. Their sales are something like only 80 or 90 million US dollars, and their valuation is, I think it's $3.5 billion US dollars. So again, in the licensing business, the multipliers are very high. eMemory are a leader in the simple memories, the what's called the OTPs or MTPs or flash memories. And they recently managed to, not recently, actually, it's already been a while, that they got the rights to the ReRAM from Panasonic. Panasonic used to develop their own ReRAM. That's an example of an IDM. But they've been working with it in Taiwan somewhat. We're not seeing them actually pushing this in the market. We're not seeing them push this. I don't know how much they really have. They haven't developed it on their own. I don't think they have the internal knowledge there, and they're maybe trying to learn it better. We haven't seen them pushing this anywhere except for in Taiwan right now.
And just staying on ReRAM product, another question from an investor. They said that they've read somewhere that TSMC has been offering a ReRAM product. How does our product compare to theirs? And with TSMC now offering ReRAM, this must lend credibility to the semiconductor industry that ReRAM is the next generation memory. Can you comment on this, please?
Yeah, I think I mentioned, I don't remember if it was at the AGM or not, probably in several places. For us, TSMC announcing that they have ReRAM was really the turning point in the industry. TSMC is the largest foundry, and they got a ReRAM from a Taiwanese research center. And the fact that TSMC has ReRAM, clearly that gives the industry the confidence level that, okay, ReRAM is here now. It's not that future thing anymore. There was also a big announcement on Infineon, which is one of the bigger companies planning to move all of their designs, their flash designs. Infineon, by the way, is a very, very big supplier to the automotive industry. And they announced that they're going to transfer the automotive chips from flash to the TSMC ReRAM. So that, again, gave people a lot of confidence in the ReRAM technology. For us, it also stirred up all the other fabs and caused them to look around and say, wait a minute, we need to compete. The foundries had to compete with TSMC. And I think that's been a key trigger for many of them to talk to us and start moving forward, of course, beyond the fact that we qualified already and that we have wafers at Skywater. So we showed that our ReRAM is actually working as well. But it's good when the big guy in the industry has this technology. It gives people confidence that, okay, if now that it's here and that customers are actually using it, and TSMC already manufactured. There's a first chip that we know of that was manufactured at TSMC that is now in the iPhone 14 that has embedded ReRAM. So again, all of this gives confidence in the industry that, yeah, ReRAM is here. We're going into the age of ReRAM now. And I'm very happy with that. By the way, I know that many people are concerned, oh my God, the big guy has ReRAM, so Weebit is trying to compete with TSMC, and clearly Weebit is not competing with TSMC. TSMC is a foundry. They make their money off of selling wafers. They add a lot of technology like different Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and microcontrollers and all kinds of other IP. They have a big library of these things which are enablers for their customers to manufacture in TSMC and buy wafers. So it all goes down to TSMC wants to sell more wafers. We'll be working on demonstrating to TSMC that our ReRAM is at least as good as the one that they have and better than that. And so, they won't have a problem once we do that put it on the shelf next to their ReRAM. They have several versions of Bluetooth, several versions of processors, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't consider them a competitor. For us, it was more of an enabler to show the market that, hey, ReRAM is here and now we can run forward.
Just maybe staying on the topic of fabs and the work you're doing with them, there's a bunch of questions that have come in around that. First of all, can we assume the fabs are conducting tests using Leti's 22 nanometer demo chip?
Actually, we're beyond that. You know, the Leti demo chip is great to show the feasibility, and then these fabs want us to actually take their PDK, what's called, and we actually are taking their process. So the PDK is process development kit, and it includes all of the details of their process, so not the Leti process, but the one that's actually used in the foundry. And we take those and we do kind of demo implementations with them, and then we run simulations on them in order to show the fab the specific results of our ReRAM in their process, because each process here is different. Each one of these fabs has a different geometry, different variants of geometries, and they want to know that it works not only on the Leti technology, they want to see it actually working in their environment. So when I'm saying that they take us through a long process of due diligence, this is part of it, you know, giving us their PDK, asking us to do all kinds of things based on their technology, run simulations, do analysis, and then they come back to us and they say, oh, you know, but the size of the cell is, you know, maybe you want to change the voltage levels, the current levels. We want to have a bigger cell, a smaller cell, higher voltage, lower voltage, more current, less current, you know, the power. There are many, many parameters here, and each one of these fabs want, you know, they have specific preferences, specific kind of things that their customers are normally asking for. So that's what's really taking us time. If you know, people are wondering why does it take so long to work with these tier one fabs, you know, they have a very, very expensive facility. They know what they want, and each one of them wants us to put an emphasis on a specific feature or features of our ReRAM, and it's different. And we need to show them that on their specific process, we can actually make this ReRAM, we can manufacture it with very good parameters. So that's really this whole due diligence that's going on now with these tier ones. It's exciting, but it's a lot of work, because each one of these things is a project.
We'll stay on the topic of the tier ones, but just before I ask the next question, just to let everybody know, there's a bunch of questions coming through asking about timing of future announcements, guidance on revenue, and so on. And clearly we can't ask or answer those questions. The company is very aware of its continuous disclosure obligations. And there's no point asking a question which the answer will be, we can't answer it. So if your questions get adapted, it's because of that. And I'm not going to sit here asking a whole lot of questions, probably about timing of future announcements to come and future developments outside of obviously what's been already disclosed to the market. Just turning to the tier one fabs, we've got a question that also came in around how did Weebit release its IP to the tier one fab without a non-binding MOU? What's the arrangement? And is the fab waiting for successful completion of the 22 nanometer testing before allowing you to disclose who they are?
Well, I guess my first comment is that I can't comment on non-binding MOUs, and if we have or have not signed any. So, you know, but we are working with them. We get their PDKs. And that's a key step. Getting the PDK from a foundry is not all foundries give the PDKs out so easily. They only do it when they know that there's something important for them. We have.
Sorry, for those that don't know, can you just explain what
PDK is Process Development Kit? That's really the PDK is the definition of the exact process and how it's manufactured, what kind of transistors they have, and how exactly they do the different steps in the manufacturing. So it's the specifics of their process, and we basically take that and we kind of implement our ReRAM based on their PDK, so that we'll know what it will look like in their specific fab, based on their specific way of manufacturing. And then there are simulation tools that can take these ReRAMs that we implement, you could say kind of in software, and run those simulations and show us the results that under this PDK, with this implementation of the ReRAM, you will need these levels of voltages, these currents, you will be consuming this amount of power, you will be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is going to be the cell size. And then based on that, we can work with the fab on the analysis of, okay, is this what you want? You want us to have a smaller cell size, you want us to have lower voltages, you want us to have this, and then our team goes back and tries to implement the requirements from these fabs, and that's basically what's going on right now.
In addition to the tier ones, are you also talking to the tier two fabs like Skywater?
Right now, we're talking to fabs at different sizes. There's also smaller fabs. Not all of the fabs are big fabs, huge fabs. Some of them are it's hard to really classify. There isn't any place that there's a definition of what is a tier one fab and what is a tier two fab or something like that. I looked at the list of the top 10 foundries and the top 10 IDMs, and I basically saw that we're working with the majority of those. And that's kind of my definition. I don't think anyone has an official definition of what is a tier one and what is a tier two.
Right.
We're just working with a lot of them, and obviously we're already working with more than we can chew to a certain extent. And once we actually close agreements with the first ones, some of these guys will just have to wait, because there's it's just way too much work to work with so many fabs in parallel. You need a team which is 10 times bigger than what we have today, I think.
And then just in terms of, in terms of closing a commercial agreement with a fab, another question that's come in, does having a commercial agreement with a fab for embedded memory production ease the way for discrete memory production by the fab, or are the two unrelated?
Actually, this is a good opportunity to comment also a little bit on the discrete side. So, if you can manufacture the technology in a fab, you can basically also go for, not only for embedded, you can go for a discrete. One of the things, and I think it's important for the shareholders and investors to also know, I commented on it in the past, we're realizing now, now that we're actually talking to real potential customers, and some of them are coming to us with requests, we're realizing that there are some niches in the discrete market that you don't have to have the selector for. And these customers are very happy to have us take the existing ReRAM cell without the selector and actually have us implement a discrete component for them. So Today, we are talking also about projects where we implement standalone memory chips for a customer, discrete products for customers. And so in some cases with some of the fabs, that there's actually also discussion going on potentially doing that in parallel to the embedded.
So just staying on that, another question that came in was, what's the status of the discrete non-volatile memory, and how are you thinking about its time frame for development?
I think I said it many times in the past. The discrete market, the big part of the discrete market, does depend on the selector, and the selector is a big project. We're making good progress on it, but I think I always said that's kind of the midterm for Weebit. There's a lot of work to be done to make that selector work. It's really not a trivial technology. It's a very difficult technology to make work. We're making progress all the time. We'll be reporting as we achieve key milestones, and let the market know. So using the selector, that's still down the road. That's still, I would say, at least a couple of years out to actually have the selector at the point where we can start really trying to use it in, talking to customers, etc., about it. But as I said, we're realizing that there are niches in the NVM market, without trying to confuse everyone, but there are, OTP and EEPROM and NOR flash. There are these segments. The NOR flash segment is a $3 billion market segment that actually we've analyzed it based on customer requests, and we've realized that we can have a competitive product there as a discrete chip, and customers are already asking for it. So there's actually work going on also in that direction right now, in looking at what we do in that space. But clearly, this, for me, I used to say embedded is short term, discrete is medium term. Part of the discrete is actually going to most likely become shorter term as well.
And then if you look out further in terms of the AI neuromorphic stuff, there's a question that's come in around, is there any update on the research that's been undertaken in that space?
There's ongoing work. Talking about short and midterm, I always said that's the longer term. That's not something that's really anywhere in the near term. So there is work going on with these research institutes. There's progress being made. But it's right now we're so swamped with the short term, with getting these initial fab agreements, customer agreements, building. I talked about it many times about, these triangles that we need to set up for the embedded side, having a product company and a foundry that'll work together with us and form this triangle so that we can move forward. In some cases, we have product companies that are saying, okay, we're interested, and but they're saying, yeah, we work with this foundry, and the foundry hasn't, we're still working with the foundry to formalize things. We obviously can't close an agreement with the customer before there's an agreement with the foundry. So there's a lot of that going on, and right now, the neuromorphic is always in the background. The research institutes are continuing to work. We give them the chips, and they work on it. But it's really not my big focus right now.
Yeah, and just one last question, maybe on the fab discussions, and there's a bunch of other topics to cover off. And this has come up before in the past in terms of the discussions that Weebit has previously had with some Chinese fabs. Just a question in terms of, with the current geopolitical situation, are those discussions with the Chinese fabs dormant? Have they been put on hold? Are they still going on? Like, where are you at with those early stage discussions that had happened?
So if you look at the top 10 foundry list, you'll see that there are two Chinese foundries there. And at least one of them is actually very interested in working with us. But like you said, right now at this point in the current geopolitical situation, on the one hand, risk management, and on the other hand, we're just so swamped with the big foundries and IDMs in the Western world. I don't see a reason for Weebit to take that risk right now and work with the Chinese foundries when we can't even handle all of the requests from the Western world. I consider it a higher risk, and so at this point, it isn't that we totally disengaged from them, but it's clearly a much lower priority right now.
Yep. Maybe we can touch on the revenue side of things. Can you just remind investors, and for those that are new, explain to them how the revenue model works in terms of, the NRE payments and then the royalty from licensing the technology, and how it plays into what you've told the market in terms of what you're expecting or planning to achieve this year in terms of new signups?
So to be clear and really stated in, there are actually three types of agreements that we are now working on. Okay. One agreement is licensing the technology to a fab. Okay, so we want fabs to manufacture the technology. We need to transfer the technology, and those that want to manufacture it for embedded, we need them to license the technology for that. So with the fabs and specifically the foundries more than fabs, there are these two elements that are license fee and the technology transfer fee. That that's the NRE, and basically with the fabs, it's technology transfer. So those are the two payments that we expect to get from foundries. Now, obviously, right now, when Weebit is in, is still in their eyes, is still somewhat of a risk, and they want to make absolutely sure that everything is working, etc. We probably the first agreements will be set up so that there are several milestones, and some of these payments will be based on milestones and so on. Now, the level of the fees, it varies quite a bit, based mostly on geometry. The difference in license and technology transfer fees between old geometries and the leading geometries can be tenfold. So it's very hard to give an indication of what what we're expecting. And I also, since we're negotiating right now with the fabs, I prefer not to mention the numbers and give them ammunition against us. But it does vary widely. So with the fabs, the deal mostly consists of license fee, technology transfer, and obviously when they start manufacturing for fabless companies, when they start manufacturing devices with embedded ReRAM, they will pay us a certain percentage of the wafer cost. So they uplift the cost of a wafer to the customers, and they pay us a certain royalty based on that. So that's the model with the foundries. Then there's the embedded customers, the customers that want to embed our ReRAM in their system on a chip. So those customers, again, there's a license fee, there's an NRE fee, and what it means is NRE is non-recurrent engineering, which is basically, they come to us and they say, the module that you designed is really nice, but we need it to fit in our SoC in this specific way. Either we need it to be really long and narrow, we need it to have an interface to a different kind of bus, we need to have all kinds of specific requests and then we go and do those adaptations for them. So that's actual engineering work that goes into this to make it fit what the customer wants. Again, these things, so the license fee normally is paid up front. In our case, some of these might be paid, the initial deals are going to be, each one of the initial deals is going to be a work of art. We're going to have to work with the customers. We'll be agreeing in the beginning to some level of milestone-based payments on things and so on, just because, realistically, people want to feel like they're lowering their risk. And then, of course, those customers will be paying us a royalty once they go into mass production. Now, there are different business models. Sometimes you can get the royalty directly from them. Other times, the royalty will come from the foundry, as a percentage of the cost of the wafers that these customers use. So you start going into a lot of variations of these business models, and that's part of what we'll need to negotiate with the foundries on exactly how. But the fact is, there's always this license fee. Then there's the NRE fee, which in the case of a foundry, it's the technology transfer fee. And then there's royalties once there's mass production. The last business model that I'll mention, since I said we are starting to look at some discrete chips. Again, I don't want people to think that now we're going full-blown into the discrete market, because we do need the selector for the majority of that market. But we will be potentially doing some discrete chips. And those are chips already that we manufacture ourselves. We package them ourselves, and then we sell the chips to customers. So it's actually chip sales already, where they pay us just a certain amount of dollars per chip or something like that. So those are the three key models. In terms of costs, they vary so much based on geometry, based on all kinds of other parameters, volumes, et cetera. I really don't feel like right now is the time to start going into all of those details of how much exactly each one, what are the ranges, because the ranges are extremely wide. They can be 10, the maximum and minimum can be 10x apart.
Yep, no, I understand. It's just good for people, for investors, to understand the different revenue models, because as you sign up new customers, everyone's going to be on it's not like a widget where you pay so many dollars per unit. It's dependent on the different structures that are put in place. I'm just conscious of time. We've got about 5 minutes, and for every question I ask, 5 more come in. So I'm just trying to cover as much ground as possible on this session if we can. And I do apologize. There'll be people whose questions won't be asked, unfortunately. Just in terms of, and we've had a few come in on this, just very quickly, a bit of background in relation to last week's suspension and what happened. If you could please provide, that would be great. A few shareholders have asked about that.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think shareholders deserve to understand what happened. It was literally a very, if I can say, stupid human error that blew up to become something much bigger. In Australia, when people exercise options or performance rights, they need to, or we need to, issue a cleansing notice, except for cases where the options are under what's called ASIC class order 14-1000. Now, our employee options are under this 14-1000, but the directors, and I won't go into the technicalities why, are not covered by that. So when Yoav exercised his options and then went ahead and sold them, we were supposed to issue a cleansing notice. It was the end of the year, people were on vacation, and it was a very simple oversight. The people that were in the office, in our corporate secretary, mistakenly thought that it was covered by the 14-1000 when it wasn't. And so we mistakenly didn't issue that. But as soon as we found out, we immediately took action, went to ASIC and immediately went to the court to ask for an ability to extend the period to issue the cleansing notice, and we just issued it late. The court approved for us to issue it late, so that was the court ruling last Thursday. I'm glad that the court understood. Actually, the court had, some of you guys noticed and were commenting on it, that the court had a human error themselves when they posted the wrong time for the court hearing. I mean, human errors happen. It's very unfortunate. We're now taking action to put in additional controls so that these kinds of things won't happen again. I'm very, very sorry, and it's a good opportunity for me to apologize for this trade halt and what happened last week. I'm glad it's over, and now we're focused on moving forward.
So let's go to a question about moving forward. There's been some commentary about the auto industry and the company's recent updates in terms of a sector that's a target sector for the technology. We've got a question that's come in here, just following up on your mentioning that TSMC and Infineon were producing product for the auto industry. Does that help or hinder Weebit's aspirations to build a significant market share in automotive?
First of all, I think if anything, it helps us. Again, it shows that ReRAM is fit for automotive. I mean, it's the proof that ReRAM is fit. By the way, Infineon and TSMC are working on getting it ready for automotive. It's not like they're already manufacturing mass production. The automotive industry, because human lives depend on it, has very, very strict regulation. You need to go through a lot of testing before they allow you to put a chip in a car where there's a risk of human lives and so on. We are working today already with, we're talking to some automotive companies. There's a lot of interest because there are many advantages for ReRAM in the automotive space. This is a space that will require a lot of hard work, and really meeting these regulations is not simple. So we're working on it. But yeah, I think it's actually, again, whatever is happening with TSMC, I look at it more positively than negatively, because it really gives that sense of confidence that, hey, ReRAM is here. It is good for automotive. It is good for these extreme things. So that encourages people to talk to us.
I'm conscious we've come up to Q2, and maybe just two more questions, more bigger picture, because we've spent a fair bit of time sort of into some of the detail. What do you see as the unexpected opportunities over the next 12 months for ReRAM?
Wow. Unexpected opportunities. I guess by definition, they're not expected, but I think that right now, well, I think we're just so swamped with work. I'm working from morning till late at night on all of these fab opportunities, and we have so many of these that we're trying to sort our way through. I don't know right now. I think for Weebit this year is really going to be a big focus on just getting into some of these big fabs and getting some of these customers on board. So I don't have anything beyond that. There's the selector, there's neuromorphic, but not.
Okay, and maybe one last question: what keeps you up at night? What most taxes your thoughts in terms of the company and the way forward?
Well, I guess you can see the gray hair on my head. I'm at the point where when I go to sleep, I sleep well at night, and that's very important. I think also for Weebit, that I have a good night's sleep and I wake up in the morning like now, and I'm already full of energy and ready to run forward. But in the sense of what worries me, there's always, my chairman is Daddy Perlmutter, and whoever doesn't know that, he comes from Intel, where the motto was only the paranoid survive. So yes, I'm paranoid. I'm constantly thinking of, can, a big competitor pop up from somewhere? Maybe something will go wrong with one of these tier one fabs, and for some reason we won't reach the voltage level or the cell size or whatever. So there are these challenges that we have, and both on the business side and on the technical side, even though on the technical side we really are beyond the big risks, right? We showed that it works, we qualified it, we have wafers in our hands, but there's always the little things, and with these big fabs, they keep pushing us to the corners. So there's, I just want to see these agreements formalize. It's I'm feeling very, very good right now about the potential of Weebit, but we should always remember, Weebit doesn't control the market, and somehow, somewhere, a competitor can pop up. I have no guarantee on that. Or some, I don't know what will happen with some of these big fabs or something like that. So there's always risk in investments, right? And people should always remember it.
To be fair to you and the board and the management team, if you look back the last 6-7 years now since you've been CEO, pretty much every time you've set targets, I mean, it's not 100% perfect, but nearly perfect. Every time you've set a target where you said you were going to deliver something, you have within the time frame that you had indicated. So I think, yes, nothing is without risk, but at the same time, if you look at the track record of the board and the management team from 7 years ago to today, it does, I believe, give confidence in your ability to deliver on what you say you will do, because you've done that for the last 7 years.
Did I mention the gray hair on my head? So I think I love my board. It's an amazing board with so much experience, and I think when we set targets, it's targets that we believe we have a very good probability of hitting. And that's what you're seeing, right? I mean, I always take into account that there can be surprises, and I take some spare if I need when I set the target, just in case. I mean, that's part of being a manager for so many years. You learn how to set the right targets, and again, my board is amazing, and together we're constantly looking at what targets we want moving forward. So yeah, I'm very proud of our record, and I'll do everything I can to maintain it.
Kobi, thank you very much for your time today. I know we've gone over time. I do apologize to all those investors who we weren't able to ask your questions. We could have probably gone on for another hour and a half based on the questions that were there. I've tried to get a snapshot of all the various questions to give as broad a discussion as possible. We will have obviously results coming out at the end of the month. Kobi has plans to come out. We haven't finalized dates yet, but plans to come out, hopefully, if all goes well, sometime in March or April. But when we do, we'll obviously arrange those sessions like we had last time. You came out in the major cities for investors to come and get an update and get an update in person, not have to hear me interview you, rather you just answer the questions direct. So thank you all for your time today, this afternoon, and Kobi, this is for your time getting up early this morning and giving us some further insight on the developments at Weebit, and importantly also the exciting path ahead as you commercialize.
Well, thank you. Thanks to all the shareholders. I'm always, so glad to have you guys with us, and I never take it for granted. So thank you to all of you guys that joined this call, and have a good afternoon.
That ends our session today. Look forward to seeing you at future Meet the CEOs with Kobi. Thank you, everybody. Bye.